Meira, welcome to Planet Bollywood, and first of all, more power to you for speaking up and coming first time on television and telling us about your story. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Meira, I want to know what was that moment when you first decided that you want to share your story with the world and name the shame the harasser. Name and shame the harasser.
Well, I really feel that this is, well, I want to say, I came forward not only to stand up for myself and to stand up for all the women who have bravely spoken so far, even though that was the main reason. And it wasn't only because I wanted to be part of the change that I myself want to see, but I came forward because I wanted to shine a light on what we perceive as a sexual predator, because we have like this stereotypical image of what a predator is. And it's obviously a lot thanks to like movies and media. We have this image of a rugged and a scary looking man, and he's kind of like lurking in the bushes, and then he goes forward and attacks you late at night when it's dark and you're alone. And then as women, obviously, we scream and we fight. Especially, I think in like Bollywood movies, he always has this look that you could tell from miles apart that that's a man probably is going to hurt you. Like he looks like a rapist or he looks like a predator.
Yeah.
But 9 times out of 10, that's not the case. 9 times out of 10, it's someone you know. 9 times out of 10, it's someone who is seemingly perfectly normal looking, and he's a hardworking man. And sometimes it's even a man that you look up to. And these men, they don't, like these men that you know, they don't just attack you one day, especially not in your workspace. They don't just come to you one day and they attack you. It happens through forms of mental abuse that stretches over periods of time.
Right.
Especially in the entertainment industry and probably also other industries, it happens through different, like various forms of suppression techniques where they constantly remind you of your inferior position and of their power. And these men have realized that they can rule through fear and they will come pretty far. So they do all of this, but then at the same time, they give you attention. They give you attention and a promise of helping your career forward, right?
Right.
So they'll make you feel like shit most of the time, but they will also kind of be saying that, you know what, it's okay because I'm going to help you and I'm the only one who can do it. So it gets kind of, I don't know, confused in your brain and you stay. You stay. It's not like you just like run away because you're kind of feeling like shit. And then they're basically, I would say, kind of like prepping you until you become vulnerable enough for them to come forward with the attack. And I wouldn't even call it attack then because it's not just like attacking. It can be inappropriately touching you or doing anything that comes without consent, basically.
Right.
And this is how you do it. And then in the end, you're standing there and you blame yourself. And for anyone, because I got this question a lot after my article came out in Times of India, is that, okay, so why didn't you speak sooner? And this is like one of those reasons, because for the longest time, I blamed myself for not having seen it come sooner. I fully put all of that on me because I was thinking, okay, for this period, I was in touch with this man. It happened for a long time. And I should have seen it coming. Like I should have seen something, and I didn't. So I just put that all on me. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to speak, because we really need to challenge the idea of what is a sexual predator.
Right.
It's not some scary man who just comes at you. We're not going to scream and fight. That's why a lot of women are silent, because it happens in a way where you don't even see it coming until you're scarred.
Well, Meira, post this horrifying incident, did you ever speak to somebody from the industry, any of your friends? Did you receive any kind of support that probably would have comforted you back then?
Definitely. Now that I have spoken up about it now, I first and foremost, I didn't really expect the kind of support that I did get. I was scared, and I'm still kind of scared speaking about it like this, because I don't know. Whenever you speak of something like this, you kind of expect people to come forward and be like, okay, but maybe it's your fault. You should have not gone there, or you should have not done this, because they don't really understand the kind of position that we are in and how this happens and the pressure it has on you during this time. And the way that people have come up to me now, I really am thankful. And I wish I could have gone back then and just told myself that, you know what, it's...
Meera, for our viewers, could you please tell us in details what exactly did Anirban Blah did that day when you went to meet him? Of course, it was all over the papers, front news, we all read it, but still for our viewers who haven't seen that news yet, we would like to tell them right here on Planet Bollywood what happened.
Yeah, so I'll start from the beginning before I actually went there that day and all of that happened. I was very new to India. It was in 2016. I had only been here for a few months, and honestly, I came here on my own. I know a lot of girls, they come to this industry through an agency or something like that. Me being from Afghanistan, we're crazy about Bollywood. We grew up watching Bollywood, and I always had this dream of wanting to act in Bollywood. And I came here, and I was really on my own. I landed that day, and I was on my own and going forward. And I would do some research to look at agencies, because I realized I do need proper representation if I'm going to be here. And I found Kwan. And at this time, like I was pretty naive. I found Kwan, and I found out about Anirban, and so I contacted him, and I contacted him on Instagram, because I thought, like, if I contact him on Instagram, I'll reach out to him sooner than me emailing him. So I wrote to him, and I was very honest about being new here, about lacking representation, and I asked if I could meet with his team. And you know, like, I do realize that Kwan, they don't really handle new talent, they handle celebrity talent.
Right.
So I wasn't really expecting much at this point. I just like wanted to get out there. I thought I'll try. He did reply to me. He responded almost immediately, saying, and he gave me an email, told me to contact these people, and then he enabled the meeting with his team. I met with the team, and as I said, I wasn't expecting much, because I know they mainly handle celebrity talent. And the meeting didn't feel too successful. It was like, oh yeah, we'll keep in touch. And I kind of figured, okay, like, I'm not going to get much out of this. So after I had told him that the meeting wasn't too successful, he said, okay, listen up. My team are very basic people. They only go for the type of talent who is similar to the girls who are in the top league today. They go for a girl next door. They want the next Alia Bhatt or something like that. They don't see raw talent. They don't know how to spot a star in the making, like a diamond in the rough. I am the man who sees something when no one else can. This is what I'm known for, actually. And I just remember at this point thinking, okay, well, I felt encouraged. I felt happy, because I was like, okay, is he maybe implying that I do have something that's worth looking into, and maybe it's not what you see in the top today, but it could become that. And that made me excited. And so he asked to meet privately, so that he could like evaluate me himself. And then he said, okay, let's meet at my workspace, as he called it. He didn't want to meet in public, and he said, like, I can't meet you anywhere between Bandra and Andheri West, because I don't want the tabloids finding out about it. And I just remember thinking, okay, that's weird. Like, I didn't even know that he was a man that the tabloids would write about him. I thought he was pretty, like, for a man behind the scenes, why would they care? And somewhere around this point, I was like, okay, something's not right. But I just ignored that feeling. And so he gave me the address to his workspace. That's what he called it. I didn't know much. And I came there. It was in Juhu, and it was an apartment. Like, it was a full-on apartment that he kept for himself. He would call it like a creative space. It's just like a flat away from his family home, which I believe is in like Kar or Bandra. I'm not sure. So I go in there. He immediately tells me, okay, let down your hair, get comfortable, sit the way you want to, and just like opening up that kind of scenario. And we start talking. He's fairly normal to begin with. And then he starts talking a lot about himself, his accomplishments. He talks a lot about the different stars that he has discovered, new ones that he has like brought forward. And then he would talk a lot about Deepika Padukone, which he basically said that when he took on Deepika, she was very like, she was struggling a bit to make an impact in the industry. But when he took her on and they worked on her, that's when this whole change happened and she became this star. And that was thanks to him and due to the work that they had done together. So he fully said that that was thanks to him, and he picked up the phone to call her just to kind of, I don't know, prove to me further that they're like this. They work very tightly together, and they were discussing her Vogue magazine cover. And so I was just sitting there waiting, and obviously I'm a little impressed. I'm like, okay, wow, this guy has helped Deepika come forward, and I look up to Deepika. I really like her. So yeah, I was kind of excited about that. And he kept on talking, and everything else was in the same theme. He would only talk about how he is a man who, just like he did with Deepika, gets girls to come out of their shell. Like, you have to find your inner sexiness, and you have to find sex appeal, and that's what it's all about. It's that you have to find something sexy, and that is what makes you a star, and nothing else. And he told me stories of how he would do this. He had different methods, and this is one that I mentioned in the article. He told me several, but the one I mentioned in the article, because it really just made me kind of, I don't know, I felt very uncomfortable when he said it, was this one girl who had, she had potential, he said. She was gorgeous, but she was too timid and she was too shy, and he needed her to just break out of that. So he locked her in his balcony. He would lock her outside, and he said that, okay, you need to masturbate, and you're going to do it until you reach climax. And until you do that, you're not allowed to come back in. And he locked her out. And like, when I was in that apartment, it was very easy for neighbors to see in. It was very like dense. So I thought about that, and he told it with such a sense of pride that I didn't even, like, at that time find it so weird, even though I went back home thinking, like, what the fuck did he just tell me? Right. But because he was so proud when he told me then that, okay, this is what I do, like, you can imagine what kind of power I have. And then we would keep talking, and see, the thing about Anirban, which is different from many other people in the industry or from what I know, is that he has this way of really analyzing you, and he then talks about those things that he has picked up on you. So it makes you feel like, okay, this guy has really tried to get to know me. Right. So he would tell me things that no one else in the industry was telling me. One of the first things he said was like, okay, I can tell that you're really intellectual and you're really smart. And obviously that is a trait that I cherish and that I would want people to think of me. I would want people to think of me and be like, hey, she's a smart girl. And so he took that and he said, you're really smart and this is what makes you sexy, but other people, they won't see it. They won't see it like I do. To me, he's saying that the fact that you're so smart is what makes you really sexy, but no one else is going to be able to see this because you're not going to be able to sit with them like I am sitting with you now. They have maybe 3 or 4 seconds to make up their mind about you. So how are you going to show them that you're so smart and sexy? I can help you work on this. Like I made it seem like, okay, what you have, only I can see it. No one else will be. And I just kept thinking that no one else was actually telling me this. And maybe he's right in a way. Maybe this is what I need to work on. And I was still feeling pretty encouraged during this entire talk. And then he tells me that in order to do all of this, in order for us to find your like inner sexiness and your sex appeal, you have to trust my process completely. You can't question the things I will tell you to do. We're going to work on this extensively. And he just like made it sound like this entire plan. And at this point, I don't even think I fully understood everything. It was just so many words and a whole lot of like planning. And I just kept thinking that, okay, he's speaking a lot and some words feel so uncomfortable. But I just want to tell people out there that being uncomfortable is an everyday thing. With every man I meet in the industry, you're uncomfortable. So this is a normal for me. I'm not sitting there thinking, this guy is weird, I'm going to run. Every day I'm thinking that someone is making me a little uncomfortable and they're weird. So I'm just like, I'm taking this. I'm taking this, I'm taking what he's saying. And he's talking about how he is the man who's the only man who can help me. And spoke a lot, but I left the workspace, the flat, that day. And he reached out to me soon after, asking me if I was ready to now start working on how to find my sex appeal. And so he gives me an assignment. And this assignment is to, he said, imagine you're doing a cover shoot for GQ in America. And you have to pick out 4 sexy looks. And he says, like, they have to be sexy. I want you to think about why you have chosen these looks, how they represent your sex appeal. And then I want you to bring these looks to my workspace. I'm going to photograph you in them, and we're going to talk about it. We're going to go through it. I Googled GQ America. I saw a whole lot of nudity on their covers, to be honest. And I felt so uncomfortable. I didn't say much then. I just said, okay. And then I didn't reply to him for days. I was Googling GQ. I was like, is he serious? Is this what he wants me to bring to him? I spoke to friends and I said, and other friends I have in the industry, and they said, okay, so Anirban wants me to imagine I'm doing a cover for GQ and pick out 4 sexy looks, and then he wants to photograph me in them. Right. And this is the first time I actually heard some stories about him. One friend of mine was telling me that, you know what, a lot of girls have spoken to me about him and said some weird things. I would be very careful if I was you. And at this time, I could understand what they were saying, but at the same time, I feel like we have this connection, me and him, because he's like, you're smart, you're this, you're that, I'm going to help you, and all of those things are in my head. This is the first time I'm talking to anyone who has, so he was telling me about all the ways he could help me. So I did feel that we have that connection. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to go with this anyway, because maybe it's different with me or whatever. I don't know what I was thinking, and I don't even think I was thinking clearly. I just knew that I was very uncomfortable and I couldn't get myself to do it. I looked at the photos of GQ and I thought about like what looks, and I just thought, no, I couldn't even get into that mind space. Right. So I didn't reply to him for days because I didn't even know how to say it without kind of like offending him and his way of working and his assignment. So I just told him that, you know what, I'm not comfortable doing this, but we could take on the assignment in a different way if you want to. I said that I would pick out looks online that I somehow think represents my
my personality.
Sexy, yeah, and just it would be like old Hollywood stars that I could connect to somehow, and I would create different collages, and I just wanted to show him
Yeah.
my vision of how I see myself and where I want to reach. And he was like, yeah, okay, you can bring the photos, just and come to my workspace anyway tomorrow. And just in case, bring the looks because you never know, you might feel like it. So I went there the next day. I didn't carry the looks with me. And when I came in, I just told him pretty straightforward as soon as I got in that, okay, listen, I don't have the looks, but I hope we can talk anyway. And immediately I sensed a change in his attitude. Like he was grumpy and he was like, oh, okay, well, um, all right. And we sat down and I started talking about my inspirations and different like actresses. And he got bored. Like I could instantly tell he got bored. He picked up his phone. He called someone. Again, I think it was Deepika. So I just like got the sense that okay, these guys are so close because he keeps calling her. And then when he talked to her for quite some time, and then when he hung up, he said, "You know what? I'm pretty busy. I really have to go to this thing. Just so you know. So like, we need to wrap up." And he basically told me to leave, and which is fine. Like I understood. I understood that okay, it's not going to happen. I called for a cab through an app. So while I was waiting for the cab, there was some awkward silence, and then he just like looks over at me, and he says something in the line of like, "Fuck, you're really sexy," and he just leans forward to kiss me, and I do back off, but at the same time, I'm thinking, how do I do this without making him even more angry? Like he already seems so pissed off, and I'm just gonna be like, "What the fuck are you doing?" Like I just carefully backed off. I really did not know what to do. I got a little scared. I didn't even know this man. I didn't know what his reaction would be. And he turned around and he said that, listen, these are the things that you have to do if you want to make it in this industry. And he would tell me, kind of like in a mean way, that it doesn't matter how well read you are, how much of a feminist you are.
Right.
These are the things you're going to have to do. And if you can't do it, just pack your bags and go back home now. He said that. He said, you should just go back home because this is how the industry works. And I don't know. He also said something in the lines of like, it's okay to not sleep with everyone. He's like, I'm not telling you have to sleep with everyone because if everyone who slept with someone would be a star, we would have millions of stars. You don't have to sleep with everyone, but you're going to have to kiss or touch and tease them and make them feel like they're wanted. And kissing is always okay. He would tell me how much he loves kissing, and that it's something that he always does, even though he's in such a happy relationship with his wife, and he doesn't want anyone else other than his wife. He's kissing other girls. I was really uncomfortable at this time. I remember my palms were getting kind of sweaty and my heart was racing, and I was just like, oh, okay. I didn't say anything to that, to what he had told me about me having to do certain things. I just wanted to leave. And my cab reached. So I got up, and he got up to kind of, I don't know, escort me out. And as I was going to say goodbye, he just kind of like pushes himself against me again to try and kiss me again. And this time, I remember I was paralyzed. I stood there and I couldn't really do anything. So I just said, okay, bye. And I ran out. I didn't really run, but I like walked out. And as I was going down the stairs and out to look for the cab, like I really remember I couldn't feel my legs. My heart was pounding. And I just kept thinking I have to run now. Because I don't know if he would run after me. Like I know that's not possible. Like he wouldn't do it, but somewhere in the back of my head, that was what I was thinking. Like run away as far as you can. After that, we didn't talk much. We didn't talk for quite some time. I just remember I would go through everything that happened over and over again. and he, after a while, started contacting me again. He would write to me and call me. And initially, I don't know, I did pick up his calls. I did write back. I seemed pretty normal, which I kind of regret now because maybe like that gave him the idea that I was fine, that like whatever he did was fine because I did reply. But it just like it hurt so much every time, and I just couldn't do it anymore. So he always wanted to meet, and instead of being like, "No, you asshole, I'm never gonna meet you again," I was like, "Yeah, I don't know. See, I'm not in town. I'm not in town." And then towards the end, I stopped replying because that was all I could do. Stop responding. So he would send like question marks, like aggressively, question mark after question mark. I'm just like he wouldn't accept the fact that I didn't want to pick up his calls anymore, that I didn't want to write to him anymore. Then he had met with a friend of mine who works in the industry, and it was just like a strictly professional thing with her agency, and his agency was there. And then so after I had just basically ignored him for quite some time, he met with a friend of mine, and it was strictly like a professional type of thing with her agency and his agency, and they were meeting with a lot of girls. And when he was talking to my friend, I don't know how they got into it, but they were saying like, "Oh, so you know Meira?" He asked my friend, and she said, "Yeah, Meira is my friend." And he said, "Listen, you need to tell her, you tell your friend that she's not going to make it in this industry. She doesn't have what it takes. Just tell her to go home. Like it's for her own good." And he would tell me the same thing, that you know what, just pack your bags. You don't have what it takes. And I remember I was obviously hurt by that, but at the same time, I was fully aware that that was his ego speaking. Even though I was hurt by hearing that, because I don't know, obviously it hurts hearing that. I was also aware of the fact that it was probably his ego speaking, because I didn't give in, or I didn't reply to his calls. I didn't want to go back to his place anymore. So I was trying to keep sane in all of this, thinking that, you know what, it's fine. But I don't know, towards the end, the more I thought about this and the more I thought about this man, and I didn't talk about him a lot because, as I said earlier, I did kind of blame myself for a lot of it. I just thought that I should have been smarter. And it's funny that I felt so stupid, that so much of what he told me was that you're so smart, you're so intellectual, and then yet he only used those things to kind of like lure me in, and I've never felt more stupid. And someone who takes that in pride, I had never felt more stupid my entire life. Even having gone there, for thinking that, okay, it doesn't have to be this way. If he just sees what I can do, what I can become, like it's gonna be fine. And I just felt so dumb. So I didn't really talk about this a lot. And it wasn't until I started hearing stories from other girls, and specifically the GQ assignment. I think I heard 4 to 5 other girls talking about that specific GQ assignment, where you need to bring 4 sexy looks in lingerie or lip. I realized that this was just a power game from his side. And I kept thinking to myself how, okay, so like we all know of this behavior. It's not just me. We all know this, but no one is doing anything about it. And not only are they not doing anything about it, they are still working with him. He has, or had, full industry support, and he had this vast connection, like network connection with people from all sides of the industry. And it made me think of how this system of power and abuse of power is so deeply rooted into this big machine that we call Bollywood, and how enormous this machine is, and how small I am. And I just knew that if I stay, this machine will just run over me without hesitation, and my heart just could not bear anymore.
Meira, when you share your details with us, what happened with you, it feels like we've heard this before. And that's why we laud your courage, where you've disclosed your name, you've come out in front of the camera, and you are narrating your story to us. I'm sure it's empowering a lot of other women who are listening to you right now. Anonymous allegations were put on Anirban Blah before, where he had to step down from his duties and responsibilities. And Meira, post your story, when you came out, there was this news where the police had to rescue Mr. Anirban Blah from committing suicide. A suicide note was found. What do you think of all that happened?
Well, oh God. When I heard of the suicide attempt, it was sent to me by the journalist who was writing my story. So she sent it to me because we were obviously already speaking. And I just remember how angry I was. I don't think I've been that angry for a really long time. I was angry because, first and foremost, I thought, what a coward that this man has put so many women through so much for so many years, and then he's being pressured for 1 week. It hadn't even been a week since the first allegations of those first 4 women came out, and he's attempting suicide. But then again, I was more angry because, like, I know the way that he works. There's no way he was actually going to attempt suicide, I feel. That's what I felt. I didn't feel that it was legit. And what angered me the most, I think, still, was that in this note, he talked about mental health. And he talked about how, I don't know, bipolarity. And it just made me angry because I asked myself, okay, do you have that diagnosed? No, he does not have that diagnosed, yet he's just throwing around this term as if it's nothing, trying to cover for himself in some way, saying that, oh, maybe I'm sick. No, I feel like you're spitting on everyone who is actually sick. It's not some alter ego that you have that is doing all of these things. It's you. So please take responsibility. And that's what I felt. And I was just really angry, and I was scared because I didn't know how everyone would perceive it. I didn't know if, like, okay, are people going to feel sorry for him now? Are they going to buy into this? And then if I won't be able to tell my story, because if I tell my story, then it's just going to be seen as someone, I don't know, who's kicking on someone who's already down. And I felt sad because I thought, okay, people might never hear it, then they're going to buy into this. And then luckily they didn't. Luckily everyone kind of saw what I saw, that this is a man desperately trying to save his own skin after doing the kind of things he is doing. But I'm glad people saw it, and that he has to face the allegations and face his sins.
And surprisingly, the pattern was the same. He used to do exactly the similar things with different girls, give them, confidence, try and tell them this is good about you, maybe you'll make it in the industry, and then talk about how you need to give in. And many women who spoke up also spoke on similar lines. So you think that these predators have a pattern here from what you felt and what you experienced?
Definitely. I think there are different types of patterns in the entire industry, and that's why in the beginning I felt that it was so important to talk about the way Anirban works, because it wasn't a very simple that I'm the man, and if you want to get somewhere, listen to me and do this, and you have to do that. For him, it was so manipulative in a way that he would make you feel that, okay, this is for you, and hey, I'm here, I'm listening, this is what we're going to work on. And you get so, like, engulfed in it. And when he then tries to do something, you just, like, you don't scream the way that someone would do when they attack you on the street. Just like, I don't know, you get scared in a whole different way, and it scars you in a different way.
Also, talking about Kwan, did you get to meet any other people who were working with Anirban Blah, his subordinates or his executives? Did you have any kind of personal experience with them?
No, I went for that one meeting, like right in the beginning, and it was at their office, their headquarters, which is in Andheri West. So I just went there. We had a normal chat, and I think there were four people sitting in, or three, yeah, three people sitting in that room. So it was just very normal.
Right.
They were very professional.
Right. Also, we recently spoke to Mandana. She came on our show, Mandana Karimi, and she spoke about what challenges, you guys face when you are not an Indian national. You know, you guys are looked differently, treated differently, and they feel like you guys are easy prey. What do you have to say on that?
That is definitely the case. As a foreigner and as someone from the West, I think there is some just kind of like underlining expectation of you. And I don't know where it comes from, if it comes from like movies or whatever, how they see Western girls, but they think that because of all this, you kind of, they can put more pressure onto you and they expect more of you. And for me, who is a Muslim girl from Afghanistan, I could never match this expectation of theirs, and it was harder on me than it was on anyone else because they wanted something out of me and I could never give it to anyone. So I would just, after every meeting, someone would imply something, I just left, going home feeling defeated, thinking like, okay, nothing for me there. And I would keep doing this with so many people, and which is one of the reasons, obviously, to why I just felt I couldn't be there anymore. And I want, like, there's this one incident with Anirban actually in the very beginning that I didn't mention in the article, but it was one thing he said to me. So Anirban, I live in Sweden, right?
Yeah.
And Anirban has lived in Sweden before he started Kwan. He did live there for some time, and that was one of the things that we connected on a little bit. And he told me instantly that, you know what, if you're from Sweden, you'll have a very hard time in this industry. Like, you probably won't make it. This is one of the first things he tells me, and I ask him why. Why would you say that? And he says, well, he meant that because Sweden is so like far ahead when it comes to equality and women's rights. He said that your way of thinking is probably like too fair and you care about justice and things like that, and the industry is not like that. So you're not going to make it. And what I realize now is that he basically set me up because he knew that I already felt I was different as a foreigner. So I'm not going to be able to handle the things that Indian girls can take,
Right.
because as a foreigner I have a different mental state. So I'm going to feel the need to work twice as hard, which means that he could throw whatever he wanted my way, whatever like weird sexual thing he wanted my way, and I would feel the need to prove that, you know what, I can take this. Like, I'm not like the other girls, I can take this. And that's one thing that like always stuck with me, that he would just like play on the fact that I was a foreigner.
So, Meira, this was just one incident about Anirban Blah. Did you ever again encounter someone who was actually expecting these kind of things from you? Did you ever have a bad experience other than this one?
Yeah, I mean, there are obviously always, as I told you, you're always like, people would be more direct. I would meet casting agents and somehow like middle hands, not even like the main casting agent. And they were very blunt. Yeah, they were very blunt. They would like specifically ask me like, how do you feel about off-screen romance? And I would laugh because I thought that was such a fancy word for something like that, off-screen romance. And I knew exactly what they meant. I just said like, no. And I would just never talk to those guys again. Other people were more direct. So it was different with Anirban because he was like so, I don't know, so detailed, all of it. But with other people, they would ask you things like that, and I'd just say like, no, I'm not interested, and then they move on to the next girl because they know that there are so many girls who just want to work, and I don't know, and they're going to try and see what they can get out of these girls.
So, these experiences that you've had, do you ever plan on coming back to Bombay and pursuing your career in spite of, having a bad taste?
I don't know. I am an actor at heart, and even though I'm here in Sweden, I definitely still am acting. And luckily, acting is a tool that is not really confined to any country. You can do it wherever. I love Bollywood because I grew up watching Bollywood, and I would love to work there someday. And you know what?